Well, hello everyone. We are into our second chat, and this week we're going to talk about the information that came out of week 2, which was all about eating a balanced diet. So a lot of these questions were actually posted the week prior, but they were more relevant to this week's topic. And I'm going to let you know that a lot of this, I'm actually going to be reading some of my answers because there was a little more technical detail this time around to the questions. And if I just kind of speak off the top of my head, I'm probably going to forget some of the things I wanted to tell you. So a little bit more reading, but that way we can make sure you're getting the really important information I would like you to have. So one of the questions that was mentioned by a few people was, how does hormonal changes associated with menopause affect nutrition and health? And this is a good question. A lot of our student population in this group, I'm sure, is at the age that they're either approaching menopause or have gone through menopause, and they've probably noticed there have been some changes in their body composition and maybe their disease risk. So what happens is that during menopause, estrogen, which is the primary female hormone, goes down. As estrogen levels go down, it actually raises our risk for some complications. Estrogen is protective of bones, so we become more at risk for osteoporosis. Estrogen is also protective of heart disease because it helps keep the HDL, high-density lipoprotein levels higher, and HDL lowers the risk for heart disease. So as women have lower estrogen levels, HDL levels tend to go down also. So as you enter menopause, it is important that you make diet changes that reduce your risk for osteoporosis and also help lower your risk for heart disease. You also need to look, in terms of osteoporosis, at the amount of calcium and vitamin D that you're getting. Both of those minerals are protective against osteoporosis. You also need to participate in weight-bearing exercise, and exercise is a common theme throughout the entire length of this MOOC. Weight-bearing exercises put stress on your bones, and whenever your bones are under stress, they remodel themselves even stronger. So we want you doing weight-bearing exercises. To lower your risk for heart disease, we want you to focus on the types of fat that you're eating. The monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats lower your risk for heart disease. They have positive effects on your heart health, and we're going to talk about some of those fats a little bit later in chat. You also want to decrease the amount of saturated fat that you're getting that you learned about in week 1 with the macronutrients, because saturated fats raise your heart disease risk by limiting your body's ability to break down and get rid of LDL, the low-density lipoproteins, which are a risk factor for heart disease. So we want to reduce the saturated fat, increase the mono and the polyunsaturated fats, and that's for everybody, not just women, but women in particular who now may be at higher risk. You also want to increase your soluble fiber intake, because having a higher soluble fiber intake can help reduce your LDL levels, which we want to promote. And you can increase your soluble fiber intake through grain products, particularly ones like oatmeal and oat bran, and fruits and vegetables. If you eat them in the fresh form, you're going to get more of the soluble fibers. And then the last thing you want to do as you are a female going into the upper decades is to maintain a good body weight. We know that women after menopause tend to have higher blood pressures, but researchers don't think it's really related to the changes in estrogen levels. They think it's related to the changes in body weight as we get older. And we can lower our blood pressures by losing weight, limiting salt consumption for some, increasing the fruit and vegetable intake, and also exercising. So all of the things we've been promoting throughout these modules so far will be helpful for women going through menopause. A second question said, does fiber interfere with iron absorption? There are products called phytates. These are found in whole grains and in soy products, and they can interfere with iron absorption. However, research shows that if you are a healthy adult consuming the recommended amount of fiber, it's very unlikely you're going to have a nutrient deficiency, such as an iron deficiency. The recommended level of fiber per day is around 30 grams for adult. And the current American diet only contains 15 grams. So the majority of people aren't eating near enough fiber at this point that we would even be concerned about interference with nutrient absorption. And even if you are hitting that 30 to 35 gram mark, if you're a healthy individual, it's unlikely that it's going to have a negative impact. The person who answered this question also provided a good tip. They said, I know that we can enhance iron absorption through vitamin C sources, and that's true. Particularly if the iron is coming from a non-meat source, such as an enriched cereal, vitamin C can enhance absorption of the iron by as much as 50 to 60%. So if you are eating an iron-fortified cereal for breakfast, throw in an orange or some fresh strawberries, and the vitamin C is going to enhance that iron absorption. The next question says, what are lean proteins? How can you get adequate amounts of lean proteins on vegetarian diets, and what nutritional issues should we watch for? According to the USDA, a lean protein is anything that has less than 10 grams of fat, and there's a couple of other criteria, but we'll focus on that one, for a 3.5 ounce serving of the product. Examples are your fish. 95% ground beef would be another example. Chicken breast and turkey breast without the skin. Egg whites in particular. And in terms of red meats, look for the words round and loin. Eye of round, top round, sirloin, tenderloin. Those are going to be your leaner cuts. If you want to specifically know for a specific cut of meat, in lesson 2, when we were talking about label reading, I gave you the site nutritiondata.com. You can enter your food product in the search engine. So if you're eating a roast beef and you've got the name of the cut, you can enter it in there, and then for a 3.5 serving size, see how many grams of fat. And that'll tell you if it's a lean type of meat. Now, in response to the part that says, how can you get adequate amounts of lean protein on a vegetarian diet? There are different types of vegetarian diets. If you consume eggs and dairy products, such as milk and cheeses, you are getting animal sources of protein, which contain all the essential amino acids, and you will not have any problems getting adequate amounts of the amino acids. Now, if you are a vegan, meaning you do not eat any animal products at all, you are at risk for vitamin B12 deficiency. And vitamin B12 deficiency can lead to weakness and fatigue and some other side effects. Vitamin B12 is found only in animal products, and so that's why someone who is a vegan may be at risk. Some other nutrients that a vegan is at risk for in terms of deficiency are calcium and vitamin D, because our dairy products are some of the primary sources of those, and zinc, because meats are a primary source of zinc in the diet. However, you can get adequate amounts of vitamin B12 from fortified soy beverages, as an example, fortified breakfast cereals. Sometimes a B12 supplement may be needed. If you follow the vegan diet and you have concerns about if you have nutrient deficiencies, I recommend you contact a registered dietitian, and they will look at your individual diet and health issues and help you determine if there are any concerns. But a well-planned vegan diet can be well-balanced in all nutrients. And after reading the questions for this week, if you will look under week 2 summary, I listed some more websites you can go to. And there are 3 of them, I believe, that talk about vegetarian diets that can give you a little bit more information. Number 4, what are some high quality protein snacks? This came from a person who doesn't like to eat red meats. One of my favorites is the Greek yogurts right now, particularly low-fat Greek yogurts. You can find some that are flavored. You can buy it plain and add your own fresh fruits to them, some granola, some nuts. Low-fat cheese, such as mozzarella. All the nuts that are out there, even though nuts are higher in fat, they're a great source of protein. They're very satisfying. They're heart healthy. So nuts are a good protein snack. Hummus, which is made from chickpeas, is a good source of protein. And you can serve something like hummus on your whole grain crackers. What snacks will boost energy levels? Really, the best way to keep your energy level up is to consume a well-balanced diet. And on this week 2 summary, I posted a link that has a little article about maintaining energy levels. But some snacks that can help with that, I mentioned already, yogurt with granola, dried fruits, fresh fruits, because they're giving you a good source of carbohydrates. Something like peanut butter on an apple or peanut butter on whole grain crackers give you some protein, a little bit of fat for staying power. And then also consider limiting your simple sugars. If you have a fairly high intake of soda pops, candy bars, Kool-Aid, anything with a lot of simple sugar, it may be causing you to feel more lethargic because the simple sugars trigger a release of insulin. Insulin will then start to bring down your blood glucose levels. That's its purpose. And going up on your glucose and then coming back down will give you a sense of lethargy for many people. The next question, what are some alternatives if I'm lactose intolerant? Lactose is a milk sugar, and some people lack the enzyme or sufficient quantities of the enzyme to break down the milk sugar. And then they will have complications such as bloating, cramping, diarrhea. But we want calcium in our diets. So some other sources of calcium, broccoli for a vegetable, very good source of calcium. We also have calcium fortified breads and calcium fortified juices. Canned salmon, because of the bones that are in the salmon, you're getting a calcium source. Soy milk and rice milk, the majority of them are fortified with calcium. Oranges, pinto beans, rhubarb, spinach, and yogurt with live cultures. Even though it is a dairy product, the live cultures are breaking down the lactose, the milk sugar. And so it's usually well tolerated by those that have an intolerance. And there is a difference. There's frozen yogurts. Frozen yogurts are like ice cream in a sense. They do not contain the active cultures, and so you don't have the lactose already broken down. The next question. According to Super Tracker, I'm going over my sodium intake without adding any extra salt. So they were looking for suggestions to reduce their sodium intake. Something I would ask you to look at is how much processed foods are you consuming, and also fast foods. Because even though you're not adding salt to products, they may be naturally high in sodium. Processed foods, it's a preservative. It makes them last longer in the shelf and in your refrigerator. To give you an idea of what to look for if you're reading labels, for something to count as low sodium, it needs to be 140 milligrams or less to be a low sodium food. An example that I brought up, 1 cup of soup, and this is not a heart healthy soup or one that promotes itself as low sodium, but just your typical soup. 1 cup of soup is about 900 milligrams of sodium. And the recommendation is to try to stick around 2,300 for the day. So if you were to have 1 cup of soup, you're eating almost, actually a little more than 1/3 of your sodium intake just in that 1 cup. So check your labels on the food you're eating. That may be where the bulk of your sodium is coming from. There was a question about the sources of healthy fats besides fish. Avocado. My favorites. Avocados are high in monounsaturated fats, which is very healthy for your heart. And you can eat avocados plain. You can put them on sandwiches in places of mayonnaise or mustard. I make up a salsa, mangoes and Roma tomatoes, and I mix those together and eat on whole grain crackers. Walnuts have omega-3 fatty acids, which is a monounsaturated fat, good for the heart. So any nuts are going to be a good source of healthy fats, but try to incorporate some walnuts because they are the only ones that give you the source of the omega-3 fatty acids. Olive oil, so if you cook in olive oils, you can get more monounsaturated fats. There are olive oil-based dressings that you could sprinkle over your vegetables in addition to your salads. Flaxseed is a source of omega-3 fatty acids. Our bodies are real efficient at converting flaxseed into the source of omega-3 fatty acids, but it is still a good source of healthy fats in the diet. Olives, they will be high in sodium, so be cautious with that. And then also soybean oil, canola oil, and I'm going to talk more about those on another question. The next question, how do I decrease my sugar consumption? The obvious one is if you're drinking soda pops, to eliminate sodas. Look at the variety of sugars in your house, dessert items. Do you need to decrease the amount of variety in your house so that you're not tempted as often? And also look at what form you're buying it in. If you're buying ice cream and are you buying it in the half-gallon, the 1-gallon containers? Because if so, it gets tempting to just sit down with a container in your lap and a spoon and not even portion anything out. So instead, maybe consider buying ice cream bars or ice cream cups, popsicles, although they're primarily sugar, but they do have sugar-free popsicles. But if you buy them in portion-controlled items, then it's a visual reminder to you that this is my portion size, and it can help decrease the amount of sweets that you're eating. If you like candy bars, buy the bite size or the mini size. I don't buy big candy bars for home, but if I happen to be in a gas station, a lot of times I'll pay 10 cents for the little mini Reese's cup because that satisfies my sweet craving and my desire for chocolate, but in a very small form. And really one of the best ways is to choose fresh fruits. Fresh fruits are naturally sweet. They're giving you fiber and other nutrients that are very important for your diet. And so they can replace some of the sweets that are in your diet. So I'm going to be talking throughout the chats about changing your environment to help you with your diet choices. So decreasing the variety of sweets in your home, changing the portion size they're offered in, but another way to change the environment is to keep more fresh fruits in your home and put them on the table or on the counter where you see them. We have studies that show that when fruits such as apples, bananas, and grapes are left on the counter, people increase their consumption of them. If you do want desserts, once or twice a week is fine. That can be part of a well-balanced diet. So again, decreasing the frequency. And I have some clients that in order to decrease their sugar intake go the opposite way. They'll go salty. So they might eat pretzels instead. Or they might go sour. They'll keep lemons and limes on hand and start using those as a snack. And they have found out that when they go to the extreme opposite sensation, sour versus sugar, it seems to get rid of the sweet taste. So that's something else to possibly consider. The next question, is cholesterol from egg and shrimp bad? Too much cholesterol from any source is considered unhealthy, and the cholesterol in shrimp, for example, is about the same as cholesterol in red meats. The difference is that shrimp is lower in saturated fat. Saturated fats decrease the ability of your liver to break down the LDL, the bad cholesterol. I remember the LDL is bad by thinking little devils for LDL. So the more saturated fat you have in your diet, the less sensitive your liver is at breaking it down and removing it. So saturated fat, whether it contains, a product contains cholesterol or not, will still raise your LDL levels. So it's not, the fact that shrimp still contains cholesterol is not really an issue. It's looking more at the saturated fat in your diet. That's where we want the emphasis to be, because the fish do provide the omega-3 fatty acids. How do I control my appetite? It seems I'm hungry all the time. There are some people that just have a natural inclination to eat on a regular basis, and we know that can be linked to the chemicals that are being produced by the brain. And so some people, whether they're hungry or not, may just have the urge to eat. But you do want to think about, are you truly hungry? Are you looking to eat out of boredom, out of anxiety, out of stress, out of habit? So try to decide, are you truly hungry? Some ideas were actually mentioned when this person brought up the question. Other students jumped in and offered suggestions, and they were good ones. Eating breakfast can keep you from feeling overly hungry mid-morning or even when lunch comes around. And there are some studies that show if you put in lean proteins at breakfast, such as egg whites and even eggs themselves, and a little bit of fat, that can keep you from feeling as hungry. Eating 6 times a day was mentioned by a few people, and we do have studies that show that if you eat 3 meals, 3 snacks, and if you plan the times you're going to do them, that helps control your appetite also. Use filling foods, fresh fruits, raw vegetables, whole grains, nuts. You can also try having a hot liquid prior to the meal, because hot liquids give a very filling effect. And some examples of these could be some hot teas, broths, or eating soup at the beginning of your meal. And you'll notice that you feel much fuller. Do dairy products increase the risk of heart disease? If they're high in fat and cholesterol, yes, they can. Butter is an example of high saturated fat. Whole milk, high saturated fat. For every glass of whole milk, envision 2 pats of butter, like you would get in a restaurant. For every glass, 8 ounces of 2% milk, envision 1 pat of butter. Skim milk, 0.5% and 1% milk, negligible amounts. So those are the recommended amounts. You can choose low-fat yogurts and fat-free yogurts. Mozzarella cheese is made from part skim milk. There was a question about eyeballing portions, and I have put under the week 2 summary some links to 3 different resources that will be very good for you to eyeball portions. So I encourage you to go look at those. As an example, of 3 ounces of meat, a deck of cards. 1.5 ounces of cheese, 3 dominoes, or 4 dice cubes. A medium-sized fruit, think of a tennis ball or a baseball. 1 cup of cooked vegetables, the size of a tennis ball. 1 cup of pasta, the size of a tennis ball or a baseball. So there's more ideas that can help you ID or eyeball your portion sizes. Is corn oil better than canola oil? I have a preference for canola oil. And the reason why is canola oil, I'm looking at a guide, a chart that I have, shows you that it gives you 11% of its fat as omega-3 fatty acids, which are very heart healthy. And so for that reason, I'm a fan of canola oil. It's very low in saturated fat and a good source of the omega-3s. Another one is flaxseed oil that we talked about. Flaxseed is a heart healthy fat. Now, corn oil has a little bit of the omega-3s in it, but not as much. If you tend to get a variety of oils in your diet, that's fine. But I would say don't focus on just canola oil, for example, or just cottonseed oil. I would definitely get a variety. But I would probably put the emphasis on canola oil just because of the omega-3s. Can you create health problems for yourself if you don't eat a variety of food and follow fad diets? And yes, on the week 2 summary, I included a link from the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics about fad diets. Fad diets usually focus on particular food groups or nutrients, and they eliminate other food groups, and in doing so, they eliminate nutrients. And you can create health problems from doing that. That's one of the reasons you want to be very cautious about whatever diets are being promoted. What about drinks, powders, or chews that provide fruit and vegetable servings? I do not recommend them because it's best to consume the whole food. You're going to get fiber, you're going to get other nutrients that can be very helpful. And we still think there are nutrients out there in foods we haven't even identified yet. And so by taking in the whole natural food, you're going to be consuming what we have yet to discover. So kind of related to that, how does the importance of drinking fruit juice compare to the importance of eating fresh fruit? Now, you will find some registered dietitians who say you should not drink fruit juice at all. I'm not one of those. I think 1 serving a day, a 6-ounce serving, is fine because for many people that helps them get their medications. There are fruit juices that are not only high in vitamin C, they're high in vitamin A. So if you happen to have a child, for example, going through a time period that they don't want to eat carrots and sweet potatoes and spinach, the things that are high in vitamin A, it can provide some in the diet. But whenever you drink fruit juice compared to whole fruits, you're getting less fiber, you're getting more calories per serving, and they may have added sugars. So I'm fine with doing 1 serving from fruit juices, but I really want your other 2 to 3 servings of fruit a day be coming from the fresh fruits themselves. And something else, to give you an example, there were some studies a while back that indicated that diets high in vitamin A might be linked to lower levels of lung cancer. However, when they provided subjects with a vitamin A supplement, they did not see the same results. What this seemed to indicate is it may be the vitamin A interacting with other nutrients in the whole food, or as I mentioned, there may just be nutrients that haven't been identified yet. So that's why it's still a good idea to consume the natural foods whenever we can versus supplements, because we're probably taking in nutrients that would be very beneficial. So be sure and look at the week 2 summary for links that discuss these questions and provide you some more information and some resources to go to. This week we're in exercise, so I've posted a discussion thread on the website where, as you're thinking about your activity levels this week and trying some new things out, post your questions there, and we'll be going over the exercise questions next week. And I wanted to leave you with something I thought was a little humorous, because I've talked about changing your environment. This is a story that I found in a book that I have. And the gentleman says, "My seatmate on a dinner flight was a woman from Switzerland. As soon as the meal was served, I noticed she heavily added salt and pepper to her dessert, a luscious-looking piece of chocolate cake. The flight attendant, somewhat taken aback, explained that it wasn't necessary to do this. The woman said, 'Oh, but it is,' as she smiled. 'It keeps me from eating it.'" So that's an example of changing your environment. She made her food unattractive when the temptation was put in front of her. I don't know how many of us would actually have that willpower, but something to think about. So, as I mentioned in one of my previous emails, we're having beautiful weather. Makes it easy here to get outside and be a little more active. And I hope that you're finding opportunities to increase your activity this week. And if the weather's not cooperating, get creative. There's some good suggestions being offered in the discussion threads this week. So thank you for those that were able to join us. And I look forward to visiting with you again next week.